Good afternoon, everyone. This is the news with b.c.begley. I am your host, and it's Tuesday, November the 18th, 2025. And let's go straight into the top news stories for today. The United Nations Security Council approved a U.S.-backed resolution incorporating President Donald Trump's proposals for Gaza, including an international stabilization force and a conditional path toward a Palestinian state. Israel's government reaffirmed its opposition to a Palestinian state, while Hamas rejected the plan as imposing international guardianship and then vowed not to disarm. The measure passed 13-0 with China and Russia abstaining, and included references to Palestinian statehood to secure Arab and Islamic support. Supporters said the resolution could expand humanitarian aid, support a ceasefire, and begin reconstruction, though many provisions remain vague and contested, The Guardian has reported. The plan places oversight with a new Board of Peace led by President Trump, but uncertainties about governance, troop contributions, and Palestinian Authority reforms leave its implementation unclear. White House officials worry that even if Congress forces full release of the Epstein files, the public suspicion about a hidden, quote, client list will persist despite their insistence that no such list exists. President Donald Trump, unable to stop the vote after GOP resistance, ultimately agreed to support releasing Justice Department records. The administration remains frustrated, arguing that all legally releasable information has already been provided and that expectations for new revelations are unrealistic. President Trump has denied any wrongdoing, and there is no evidence that has linked him to any of Epstein's crimes, Politico has reported. Despite bipartisan momentum for the disclosure bill, officials expect the controversy to continue, fueled in part by earlier comments from Attorney General Pam Bondi suggesting undisclosed materials existed. A federal magistrate judge ruled that the Justice Department committed a, quote, disturbing pattern of serious investigative errors in securing the grand jury indictment of former FBI Director James Comey. Judge William Fitzpatrick cited fundamental legal misstatements to the grand jury, possible use of privileged communications, and irregularities in the grand jury transcript. He ordered prosecutors to turn over all grand jury materials to Comey's defense team, noting that such relief is rare but warranted given the missteps. The ruling highlights procedural failures and prosecutorial inexperience that threatened the Trump-backed case against Comey, as well as a parallel in prosecution of New York Attorney General Letitia James, the AP has reported. Both defendants argued that the cases are politically motivated and that the prosecutor, Lindsay Halligan, was improperly appointed, with a separate judge expected to rule on that issue by Thanksgiving. A federal judge ruled that a former Alaska Airlines pilot, Joseph Emerson, who tried to shut off a plane's engines while off duty in 2023, will serve no additional prison time beyond what he has already served. Emerson, who blamed his actions on a mental health breakdown triggered by hallucinogenic mushrooms and extreme sleep deprivation, received 3 years of supervised release after pleading guilty to interfering with a flight crew. He had previously accepted state charges that resulted in probation, a brief jail term, and the loss of his pilot's license. In court, Emerson expressed remorse, saying the incident forced him to grow and that he never intended to harm passengers, the BBC has reported. He has since paid restitution, begun working part-time, and started advocacy efforts focused on pilot mental health. Japan scrambled fighter jets after spotting a suspected Chinese drone near one of their islands, which is close to Taiwan, amid rising tensions with Beijing. The following day, the Chinese Coast Guard vessels entered Japanese territorial waters around the disputed island, a frequent flashpoint between the two countries. The incidents coincided with anger from China over remarks by Japan's new conservative prime minister suggesting that Tokyo could intervene militarily if China attacked Taiwan. Beijing, which claims Taiwan as its own territory, condemned the comments as provocative, CBS News has reported. The developments underscore growing friction between the neighbors over territorial disputes and Taiwan-related security issues. Bangladesh's International Crimes Tribunal sentenced the ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and her home minister to the death penalty in absentia for crimes against humanity related to last year's student-led uprising, which the United Nations says killed up to 1,400 people. The tribunal, modeled on the Nuremberg trials, defended its process as meeting international standards, while Hasina called the verdict politically motivated and denied any wrongdoing. The protest, initially over a controversial government job quota system, escalated into a broader anti-government movement that forced Hasina to resign and then flee the country. Security has been tightened across Bangladesh ahead of potential unrest, and the interim government has requested India extradite Hasina, NPR has reported. Analysts warned the ruling may fuel further political violence, with the Awami League banned from activities ahead of upcoming elections. U.S. President Donald Trump said he might engage in diplomatic talks with Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro, but he did not rule out military action against Venezuela, citing Maduro's alleged role in drug trafficking and immigration issues. The United States recently deployed the USS Gerald R. Ford and conducted strikes on vessels suspected of transporting drugs, actions seen by some as pressure tactics on Maduro. Analysts note the administration is signaling an ultimatum: engage in credible negotiations or face escalation, reflecting a negotiating from strength approach. Maduro expressed openness to dialogue and rejected war, emphasizing diplomacy, while Venezuelans reacted with cautious skepticism and hope, the Associated Press has reported. President Trump also suggested that he would not rule out military action against drug operations in Mexico or Colombia, underscoring the administration's hardline stance on narcotics. David Richardson, acting chief of FEMA, announced that he will resign after hurricane season amid public criticism and internal frustration over his leadership. Richardson, a loyalist to DHS Secretary Kristi Noem with no disaster management experience, faced scrutiny for incidents like being unaware of the U.S. hurricane season and being largely absent during catastrophic Texas floods in July. He will be replaced by Karen Evans, a Trump administration ally and DHS chief of staff, starting on December the 1st. Richardson defended his tenure, saying he stepped into the role weeks before hurricane season when no one else would, and coordinated responses remotely during disasters, CNN has reported. His departure highlights ongoing leadership challenges at FEMA as DHS plans reforms that could reshape the agency's future. Prince Mohammed bin Salman, Saudi Arabia's crown prince and prime minister, is visiting the United States for the first time since 2018, following the international outcry over Jamal Khashoggi's murder. While he denied ordering Khashoggi's killing, he acknowledged responsibility as the kingdom's de facto ruler. The visit focuses on strengthening U.S.-Saudi cooperation in oil, security, finance, AI, and technology, with meetings scheduled at the White House and a dinner hosted by President Donald Trump. Ahead of the visit, Saudi Arabia secured a major weapons deal, including advanced F-35 fighter jets, the first sale of these jets to an Arab country, ABC News has reported. The visit is being marked with high-profile ceremonies, including Saudi and American flags displayed outside the White House. Kurt Anderson, a homeowner in Whitestown, Indiana, has been charged with voluntary manslaughter for shooting at a cleaning crew who had mistakenly arrived at his house, killing Maria Florinda Rios Perez, who was a mother of 4. The incident occurred on the 5th of November when Anderson fired through his door instead of calling the police, and Perez was found dead on the front porch in her husband's arms. Prosecutors delayed charges while examining Indiana stand your ground law, but concluded that Anderson's actions did not qualify for legal protection. The case highlights ongoing national debates over stand your ground laws and incidents of homeowners using deadly force against innocent people, including similar cases in Missouri and New York, the BBC has reported. Authorities said Anderson, quote, did not have the proper information to justify his actions as reasonable under the law. All right, it's about 10 past the hour, and here we're going to take a look at the live weather radar from the National Weather Service. And now let's go into the National Weather Forecast for today. A slight risk of excessive rainfall is expected over parts of the southwest and the southeastern California area through Wednesday, with potential localized flash flooding. Light snow will occur over the upper Mississippi Valley and the Great Lakes, while moderate to heavy snow is forecasted for the southern Utah and Sierra Nevada mountains. A front moving eastward will bring heavy rain and thunderstorms to southern California and the southwest, along with snow in the mountains. Multiple systems will produce rain, snow, and thunderstorms across the northern and the eastern parts of the United States, including the Pacific Northwest, the Rockies, and the Mid-Atlantic region. Overall, the week will see a mix of precipitation types and potential flooding concerns in vulnerable areas. Ukraine and France have signed a long-term strategic agreement under which Ukraine will receive up to 100 Rafale F-4 fighter jets, advanced air defense systems, and French radars to bolster its defense against ongoing Russian attacks. Deliveries of the jets are planned through the year 2035, and joint production of interceptor drones will begin this year, though financial details are still being finalized, potentially involving EU funds and frozen Russian assets. President Vladimir Zelensky called the deal, quote, historic, emphasizing the importance of protecting civilian lives amid Russia's frequent drone and missile strikes, which have targeted infrastructure and caused civilian casualties. Analysts note that the Rafale's impact would depend on training, logistics, and accompanying missiles, and the agreement is more political than an immediate operational boost, the BBC has reported. Ukraine is also pursuing additional Western military aid, including F-16s, Swedish Gripen jets, and economic support, while continuing to face Russian advances along its front lines. Ecuadorians decisively rejected a set of referendum measures, including allowing foreign military bases, reducing Congress size, and cutting public funding for political parties, marking a political setback for President Daniel Noboa. Noboa had promoted the measures as essential to combat violent gangs and cocaine trafficking, with Ecuador serving as a major transit corridor between Peru, Colombia, and international drug markets. Voters expressed concern that constitutional changes could consolidate too much power in the presidency, reflecting broader skepticism of Noboa's leadership. Despite states of emergency, a new maximum security prison, and international cooperation efforts, gang violence and homicides continue to rise in the country, NPR has reported. Analysts say lasting improvements require strengthening the judicial system and tackling corruption, as foreign military cooperation alone will not solve Ecuador's security challenges. Polish authorities say an explosion on a railway line near the Ukraine border was a deliberate act of sabotage, with no casualties reported, and Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk vowing to find those responsible. The attack occurred on a crucial route for military and humanitarian aid to Ukraine, with a second suspicious incident on the same line likely linked to sabotage. Officials suspect foreign involvement, possibly from Russian intelligence, given Poland's history of hybrid attacks, including parcel bombs and espionage targeting railway infrastructure. Investigators are collecting evidence from security cameras and other sources, but no suspects have yet been detained, the BBC has reported. Experts suggest the attack may have been intended to intimidate Poland psychologically, and officials stress they would pursue the perpetrators, quote, ruthlessly. In Chile's presidential election, left-wing candidate Janet Yara and former labor minister and far-right contender Jose Antonio Cast will face off in a runoff election on December the 14th. Jara, who won 27% of the first-round vote, is campaigning on a platform of minimum income, cash transfers, and support for small businesses. Cast, running for the third time, focuses on cracking down on illegal immigration, organized crime, and building high-security jails, appealing to voters concerned about public security. Right-wing candidates collectively received more than 70% of first-round votes, giving Cast a strong advantage heading into the runoff, NPR has reported. The winner will assume office on March the 11th of 2026, and the election is widely seen as a referendum on Chile's leftist versus right-wing models for governance. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has close ties to individuals implicated in a $100 million golden toilet scam that allegedly siphoned wartime energy program funds beginning in 2022. Businessman and former Kudvardo 95 co-founder and neighbor is identified as a key figure, while a former deputy prime minister is also named for alleged abuses while in office. And although President Zelensky has not been formally implicated, rumors suggest he may have been aware or even benefited from the scheme. Zelensky has publicly praised the Anti-Corruption Bureau's investigation and called for punishment for anyone found guilty, the New York Post has reported. The scandal has stirred disillusionment among Ukrainian soldiers and citizens, who see it as evidence of deep-rooted corruption amid the ongoing war. A suspected Russian drone attack hit the Turkish tanker MT Orinda in Ukraine's Odessa region, setting it on fire and prompting evacuations across the Danube River in Romania. All 16 crew members were safely evacuated, and footage showed thick smoke rising from the vessel near the Izmail port, which is a key Ukrainian trade hub. The strike came shortly after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky finalized a deal to import U.S. liquefied natural gas via pipelines from Greece to Odessa starting in January. Romanian authorities monitored the incident closely, tracking drones in Ukrainian airspace and issuing alerts to nearby residents, though no Romanian airspace was violated, Fox News has reported. The attack highlighted renewed Russian targeting of Odessa's energy and port infrastructure, raising regional security concerns and prompting NATO to expand air defense operations under its Eastern Sentry initiative. Gunmen attacked a boarding school in Kebbi State, northwestern Nigeria, before dawn on Monday, abducting 25 schoolgirls and killing at least one staff member. The assailants, armed with, quote, sophisticated weapons and traveling on motorcycles, exchanged fire with the guards before carrying out the raid. No group has claimed responsibility, but authorities said the attack aligns with the ongoing threat from armed bandits who kidnap for ransom, distinct from Boko Haram or ISWAP militants. Police launched a coordinated search operation along escape routes and nearby forests to rescue the students and apprehend the perpetrators, the Associated Press has reported. Since 2014, at least 1,500 students have been kidnapped in northern Nigeria, although recent school raids have declined due to enhanced state security measures. The German government announced it will lift restrictions on military equipment exports to Israel starting on November the 24th, following the recent ceasefire with Hamas in Gaza. Chancellor Friedrich Merz had imposed the restrictions in August in response to Israel's decision to take over Gaza City. Government spokesperson cited the ceasefire and stabilized conditions in Gaza as the basis for the new decision. Germany will now review military export requests to Israel on a case-by-case basis, following standard procedures, ABC News has reported. Israel's foreign minister welcomed the move and then urged other governments to follow Germany's example. China plans to launch the uncrewed Shenzhou 22 spacecraft on November the 24th to serve as a backup lifeboat for the Shenzhou 21 crew aboard the Tiangong space station. The mission follows damage to the Shenzhou 20 spacecraft by space debris, which prevented its safe return back to Earth. Shenzhou 22 will carry supplies for the astronauts and equipment for Tiangong, but will launch without a crew, ahead of its originally scheduled 2026 mission. The Shenzhou 20 spacecraft remains in orbit but is deemed unsafe for crew return due to a cracked viewport window that could compromise re-entry, Space News has reported. Meanwhile, the Shenzhou 20 astronauts returned safely back to Earth on November the 14th and will undergo quarantine, medical exams, and recovery in Beijing. Archaeologists have discovered a massive Bronze Age settlement in northeastern Kazakhstan, dating back about 3,600 years ago and covering 346 acres, over 4 times larger than nearby villages. The city featured well-organized households, central structures possibly used for rituals or governance, and dedicated areas for large-scale copper and tin bronze production. Its location atop a bluff overlooking a river and near mountain ore deposits suggests it controlled trade and metal distribution in the region. The settlement challenges previous ideas about steep societies, showing that mobile communities could build permanent planned settlements with industrial-scale production, Live Science has reported. Researchers believe ongoing and future excavations will clarify the city's role within broader Bronze Age trade and social networks. Today is November the 18th, 2025, and on this day in history, in the year 1493, Christopher Columbus returned back to Spain after his first voyage to the New World. In the year 1928, Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin, the world's first widely effective antibiotic. And in 1979, the Jonestown Massacre occurred when over 900 members of the People's Temple died in a mass murder-suicide in Guyana. November the 18th is also National Princess Day. Alright, it's 21 past the hour, and we're going to do a quick market update. The NASDAQ is down 1.09%. Gold is up 0.41%. Oil is up 0.07%. Bitcoin is up 1.62% today. The Dow Jones is down 0.81%, and the S&P 500 is also down 0.53%. Okay, hey, while I got you here real quick, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. That way you can stay up to date on all of our news stories and our live shows. And now let's go into the last block of news for today. New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani reached out to the White House to arrange a meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump, signaling a potential thaw in relations after months of tense rhetoric. Mamdani said the meeting would focus on addressing New Yorkers' affordability crisis, including rising costs for housing, childcare, groceries, and transportation. President Trump acknowledged Mamdani's request and expressed willingness to meet, while the White House did not provide details on timing or agenda. During the mayoral campaign, President Trump repeatedly labeled Mamdani as a democratic socialist and a communist, while Mamdani positioned himself as an opponent to President Trump's policies, NBC News has reported. Despite voter concerns over economic issues, President Trump has dismissed criticisms, highlighting his administration's economic record and emphasizing the stock market as a measure of prosperity. Cedric Irving, 27 years old, has been charged with the murder of former football coach John Beam, who was shot in the head at Laney College in Oakland and died the following day. Beam, featured in Netflix's Last Chance U, was at the Laney Fieldhouse when the shooting occurred, which came a day after another nearby school shooting. Authorities said Irving knew of Beam but had no personal relationship with him, and the shooting appeared targeted. In response to recent gun violence, Alameda County District Attorney Ursula Jones Dixon announced the reinstatement of mandatory minimum sentences for gun possession, ABC News has reported. Oakland's Mayor Barbara Lee praised Beam's legacy, emphasizing his mentorship of thousands of young people rather than his coaching record. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department is investigating new sexual assault allegations against Sean Diddy Combs, based on a report from Florida police. The complaint, initially filed by music producer Jonathan Hay, alleges incidents in 2020 and 2021 involving Combs and C.J. Wallace, the son of late Notorious B.I.G. Hay claims Combs engaged in sexual acts with him and provided evidence of his collaboration with Wallace leading to the incidents. Wallace has filed a counterclaim denying the allegations, calling them false and defamatory, and seeking a jury trial and damages, ABC 7 News has reported. Combs is currently serving a 50-month prison sentence for a separate July conviction on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. A man identified as David Alfonso Barrera Nunez faces federal charges after a boat carrying immigrants from Mexico to the United States capsized near San Diego, killing 4 passengers. He is accused of illegally bringing people into the country for financial gain, which resulted in death, and could face life in prison or even the death penalty if convicted. The boat, with 9 people on board, encountered engine problems, and then the captain allegedly refused to turn back, causing it to capsize in rough waters. Some survivors reported the captain's refusal to help, and one was severely injured during the incident, CBS News has reported. This tragic event highlights the dangers of immigration boats, which have capsized multiple times in the area, risking many lives. All right, everybody, that is our show for today. I hope you all have enjoyed it. It's a little shorter than usual, but we didn't have as many news stories today as we normally do. Sometimes we do have slow news days. It happens. I will see everybody tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time for another episode of The News with BC, and I hope everybody has a great rest of your day.